Hey everybody, in this video we're going to make a tuck and roll seat cover for Shane's Model A. So I know what you're probably all thinking. This is not a Model A seat. This looks like a minivan seat because that's exactly what it is a minivan seat. This is from, I believe, a Dodge Caravan, which are very popular seats to use in Model A hot rods because they fit really nice, and you can find them all the time for almost free, or Jim was just saying there's two online right now for free. So we're gonna make this seat not look like a minivan seat. We're gonna sew up a ivory and oxblood tuck and roll seat cover for it. So let's do that. So I brought Shane's seat upstairs to the upholstery lounge, the upholstery loft, and before we take this thing apart, we want to draw our new design out on here, because then we can use this old cover as a pattern. So the general rule with upholstery is when you're making a seat cover, you want your pleated area or your design area or whatever to be 2/3, and then the last third would be like your solid area. So when the seat was still in the car, Shane and I kind of quickly drew it up here just to make sure that he was cool with it. But now that it's up here, we're just going to take this big straight edge and just redraw our lines on here. So from here, it's going to be solid. And from this line back, that's going to be the tuck and roll area. Once we get those drawn out on here, flip this upside down here, then we'll go ahead and start pulling the cover off to use it as a pattern. I'm just drawing on this with chalk. You can use a grease pencil as well, because we're not ever going to be reusing this, but the grease pencil wipes off vinyl really well, but it doesn't come off fabric really well. To take this thing apart, we're going to start by removing this plastic on the sides. It's just a couple Phillips screws. I think they're Phillips. Maybe they're Torx. Nope, they're Phillips. Pull the screws off, and then this plastic should come right off. So we've got 4 15mm bolts right here. I'm assuming, I've never actually taken a Caravan seat apart before, but I'm assuming if we undo these 2 bolts, the backrest should come off, and if we undo these 2 bolts, the cushion should come off. So we'll start with the backrest. Okay, 4th bolt's out. And our backrest is loose. Moving on to the cushion now. Basically just do the same thing. Those came loose from our seat frame, but we have this cable here that runs along to the other side for the little lever. So we're just going to pull these little tabs, and then we can get that cable right out of there. Just like so. So, another thing to keep in mind, these are our bottom bolts, and these are our top bolts. Notice how they're different. Don't get them mixed up. So we got the back half already undone. Now we can just pull the rest of these tabs off to get the rest of the cover off. When it comes to upholstery, modern cars are it's kind of like the opposite. I need a screwdriver for there. Modern cars are mechanically really hard to work on. Old cars are easy to work on mechanically. Upholstery is the opposite. Old cars are the seats. There's a lot more to them. Come on. There's a lot more to them, whereas modern seats are, everything just kind of clicks together. Oh, that guy was really on there. And a lot of that has to do with just modern foam. Now, I think it started in about the 70s. You could get, they started like the technology to make molded foam started, whereas before that, there wasn't really foam. You had metal springs, and then you would put like burlap and cotton, stuff like that to build the thickness up. Okay, this should be the last one. We're all unclipped. We can flip this over again. Start at a corner. Oh no, that piece clipped back on. Okay, there we go. Start at a corner and just kind of peel it back. Oh, this is glued down. Okay. That might get a little bit trickier. We might need to take the heat gun. Oh, maybe not. It's coming off. This isn't normal. Seats covers normally aren't glued down. I'm assuming they did that to get this kind of like molded look. So we'll slowly peel this back, trying not to damage the foam. If it gets tricky, you can always use a heat gun to warm up the glue and makes it come apart again. But this is coming apart pretty easy. Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to avoid right there. Okay, that's apart. Now we'll just do the same thing on the backrest. This will probably some sort of clips that hold it on. Yeah. Just gently tug on that. And off it comes. Like so. Slides in and then clips down. So all the clips unfortunately stayed in there. We'll have to reattach them to that, but that's not a big deal. So just like before, we just pull these little tabs off, or little clips. And then we'll gently peel this away again. So we got the covers off. This molded part here, we might have to fill that in with foam, or the cover, when we sew it up, it might just bridge across the top. I guess what we can do is sew it up and try it on there, and if it looks weird, then we can take the cover back off and put some soft foam in there to fill the holes. These old headrest plastics we don't need anymore, so we'll take those out. You just squeeze the bottom and pull it out the top. We can throw those out because they're not going to go back in. With those out, we can now put the seat frames and cushions aside. So when you've got these original covers, it really makes life easy because you can see how it all went together. Basically, we're going to study this and reverse engineer it. And by doing that, we can determine that this piece, this is called the top plate. We got the top plate and the band. So the top plate, this is just one piece, but our new top plate is going to be two pieces because we're going to have a seam there. So we know that we got to sew these two pieces together first. Then we take our band, which is made of one side piece, one front piece, another side piece, and a rear piece. These all get sewn together first to make the complete band, and then that band gets sewn to the top plate. So we'll start dissecting that now. We're going to make a bunch of lineup marks on here that will transfer to the new one. That way when we're sewing it together, we can make sure that we stay, lined up along the way, and you don't end up when this seam here gets to the corner is actually here or here when we want it to be here. Right, Doris? Yeah, upholstery's fun. So our lineup marks for this area, they can kind of be anywhere. There's no rhyme or reason for them as long as you have enough that you don't get out of whack. I do get specific with like this seam right here. What I'll do is on the top plate, I'll make like a little V like that, and then I know that that V has to line up with that seam. Same with, we're going to have another seam right here, so I will put a V there to know that that seam needs to land there, and like so. So we'll kind of do that all the way around. You can never have too many lineup marks. With all the lineup marks on there, I'm going to number all of these seams so that I know what order to sew them in. So that's a 1 and that's a 1, meaning that this will be the first seam I sew. This one here we're going to mark as 2 and 2. That'll be the second one. 3 and 3. And so on, all the way around. This will be number 5. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the final one will be the top plate to the band. Will be number 6. So 6 steps. Once that's all sewn up, then we'll worry about transferring these guys onto the new ones, but we won't get too ahead of ourselves. So we're basically going to do that for, this is the cushion, we'll do that for the backrest, and then we can cut all this apart and start laying it out on our new material. So this one is put together quite a bit different than that one. So it's important to, study every seat cover because they're always different and see how they did it and basically just do it the exact same way. So we got our top plate, this piece and this piece get sewn together first. Then we've got this little band down here that gets sewn on second. Then we move to this band here. So we got this weird little piece here. We'll sew that third, sew this fourth, fifth, sixth, and then the last piece will be sewing the top plate to the surrounding band. So now we'll separate these two. We don't need this piece anymore. We can go over there. We'll put that aside so we don't get them mixed up and start taking this apart. We're going to do it in the reverse order that it gets sewn together. So we start with number 1 and end with number 6. Taking it apart, we're going to start with number 6. And basically all I'm using is I've got this little stitch ripper here. And we're going to go in somewhere on the seam and just pull the stitches apart. like so. Once you get it started, they come apart a little bit easier. So we'll take that all the way around. There you can see the hole starting in there. And once the hole starts, you can see the stitches considerably easier. Watch your fingers. You're probably going to poke yourself. We'll go all the way around. So there's all of our band pieces. We'll just put those to the side and take our top plate piece. So we're going to have a seam here, but there never was a seam there on the original design. So just simply take some scissors and cut on that line. So we'll have to remember on this line to add our seam allowance, which is 3/8 of an inch on each side. So when we trace this on the new piece, we'll add 3/8 and add 3/8. And that is this little area here. That's called your seam allowance. And that's where basically the stitch happens 3/8 of an inch away from the edge of the material. And then obviously for the backrest, we're just going to do the exact same thing. Take it apart in the reverse order. So we'll start at number 7. So we've got both the cushion and the backrest separated, all taken apart. And this area here is the area that we're going to do the ivory tuck and roll panels on. So before we get into that, I just made a little sample because I want to explain the difference between pleats and tuck and roll, because a lot of people don't know the difference. Everybody wants tuck and roll upholstery. Most people just get pleats though, and there's a reason for that. So pleats are where you can still see the stitch. And basically, you just lay out a piece of vinyl, mark your lines on it, and sew on the lines, and gives you a pleat. Tuck and roll looks very similar. However, you'll notice you don't actually see the stitch. It is hidden. As far as like tradition goes, both are equally as popular. Back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, pleats were just as common as tuck and roll. But in my opinion, tuck and roll just gives you a little bit better street cred. It just looks a little bit cleaner. Everyone loves tuck and roll. I mean, we've all seen American Graffiti. Oh, I just love tuck and roll upholstery. So the reason why this costs more is because it takes twice as many steps and a lot more material. If you flip on the back side, you'll see we just have our single stitch. But here, we've got this seam. So when you sew tuck and roll, you start with a pleat like this, then you fold it over and sew another line on there. And then when you open that up, that's what gives you the hidden stitch. But this uses an extra 3/4 of an inch of material. So why that's relevant to this is because Shane wants 2 1/4 inch tuck and roll on here. So we have to do a quick layout, figure out how many lines we're going to have. Then when we transfer this onto the new material, for every line that we have to add an extra 3/4 of an inch in length to compensate for where it folds, gets sewn, and unfolds. To do that, we're going to start by finding the center line on here. I think it was, we'll just double check it again here. I think we needed 22 inches for our center line. Yeah, so 22 inches is right there. Let me grab a square and put that on 22. And there's a factory center line mark in this cover already from when the factory built it. Where did my pencil go? Okay, so let's get our center line on here. And now we can figure out how many lines we're going to have. You kind of got to lay it out two ways. One of having this line here is going to be like one of the folds, or you can use that as a center line and split the difference and have the fold there and there. And the only thing that makes a difference is when you get out to the end. So, because in a perfect world, you would want all your rows to be even right out to the very end. But sometimes, most of the time, that doesn't work out. So you can manipulate it by maybe having an odd number or an even number. So I think I will, now that I've got the center line marked out on here, I'm just going to play around with it and see how many we can get. So by starting one of our folds right on the center line here, if we go 2 1/4 all the way to the end, right at the end with just about, can make a full one. It's a little bit wider, but if we don't sew this last line in, it'll be just fine. So it works out that we can get 19 folds across there. So if we take 19 times 3/4 of an inch, that should be 14 1/4 is what we're going to have to add on to our total length. And no, I am not a mathematician. I figured it out on my calculator before I filmed this. So we have our total length on here is 44 inches. So if we go 44 plus 14 1/4, that's how much material we're going to need. So we'll lay that out now. Here's the ivory that we're using. This is the same stuff that my 47 interior is done with. And it is made by Naugahyde, and this line is called English Pub. So I guess, I don't know, it's supposed to look like an old sticky English pub or whatever. Thankfully, it's not sticky yet. So we needed 44 inches plus 14 1/4. So if we measure out 14 inches to there, I should grab a black grease pencil here. 44 inches, and then we'll go another 14 1/4. So that's about how much material we're going to need. How big is that? 58, which is too bad because this stuff is 54 inches wide, 55 inches wide. So it's not quite wide enough that we can go that way. We got to go up the roll, which uses a little bit more material, but that's fine. Okay, I think we'll make a straight. We'll probably add on to this a little bit, just so that we don't end up a little bit too short. We'll add an extra 2 inches on there. Okay, let's find the center line on that now, which should be 30 1/4. Double check. 30 1/4. So this will be our center line here. So from here we can start laying out our pleats. Now Shane wanted 2 1/4 inch pleats, and for every pleat we need 3/4 of an inch in material. So I have this template pre-cut. 2 1/4 plus 3/4 equals 3 inches. So we can just put this down on our line. I like to go over the line to compensate for the thickness of the grease pencil line. There's one. Two. Every now and then I'll run a square on here and square it up just to make sure we're good. Also, before we get too carried away, I'm going to put a C in a couple spots on here, just so that we know that that's our center line. So we also got to figure out how high up we need to go. So if we take these guys and measure from there to there, it's 15. But remember, we got to add 3/8 on there. So this guy will be 15 and 3/8. And this one is 14 and a half plus 3/8. So I think just to be on the safe side for now, we'll lay those out about like that. I'll just put a mark along there. When we're laying the pleats out, I like to make everything a little bit bigger, and then when I sew it all up, then I can cut it down a little bit more precise. So, on that note, let's put our last, or go all the way up to the top on our center line. I also, when I lay them out, I always lay the cushion and the backrest out together with the same lines. That way your pleats, when it's all sewn up, your pleats or your tuck and roll folds, everything is always the same. It all lines up. Okay, I guess we can draw all this out. Okay, let's cut this guy out. And then we can glue it to some scrim. So you're probably wondering what scrim is. Scrim is a special kind of foam, also sometimes known as sew foam. And it's dense foam with a mesh on the back. And you use that for sewing through. The mesh stops the thread from like sucking through the foam. So we can get rid of this piece, this roll, put it over here for now. We'll take this, put it over here, and grab, we got a big brand new roll of scrim here. So scrim comes in a couple different thicknesses. You got 1/4 inch scrim, 1/2 inch scrim, and 3/4 inch scrim. 3/4 inch scrim I've never actually used before, but 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch you use all the time. The thicker the scrim, the poofier your like pleats and folds and stuff are going to be. So I usually just use 1/2 inch. Except for on door panels and stuff, I'll use 1/4 inch on door panels because you don't want them super poofy because it makes it harder to put the door panel together. Okay. So here is, I don't know if you guys can see that in the camera, but here is the mesh. We got foam on one side, mesh on the other side. So let's unroll this. Then take our piece, lay it out on here. I just wonder if it will fit that way. That would be super cool because it's way less material. I don't think it will. Oh, not quite. We're like 3 inches too wide. What a bummer. Oh well. Okay. Put that about there. Then we'll get a little bit of glue, and we're going to glue this down to the scrim. So we'll fold that in half, get a can of glue here. You don't need a lot of glue because it's kind of just temporary to hold it until you start sewing. Okay, we'll roll this down like so. Pull this way and do the same on this side. This is just regular spray adhesive. Okay, roll this down. Okay, now we can grab our scissors again and cut this out. So this will be ready to start sewing now. Okay, let's get this out of here. Here's our panel glued to the scrim. And we got the machine all loaded up here with some white thread. So we're going to start sewing this up. I'm going to sew all of them except for the last row. I'm not going to do that one until everything is sewn up, just in case something got weird in my math and figuring. If it isn't lining up at all, then we can still save that last one just to manipulate it a bit. So we'll start on this one and kind of work our way across. Fire this guy up. Get it in there. And make a pass. Following our black line. That guy up out of the way over there. One day I'm going to make a little bench extension for that corner. Someday. Okay, there we go. We got one stitch down. So if we were only doing pleats, we would be done right now. Move on to the next row. But because we're doing tuck and roll, we're going to fold this on the line that we just stitched and do another pass. Clamp that in there. Get this up out of the way again. If I got to do a lot of sewing, I'll steal one of the tables out of the kitchen and put up there. So when we get this stitched and we unfold it, then we will have our tuck and roll. Couple more inches. Okay, there we go. Let's see what this looks like. Ta-da! Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, now we just got to do that like 18 more times. Okay, we're on the last one now. So this is kind of like the modern way of doing tuck and roll. The old way they used to do it, kind of getting back to what I was talking about with the seat foam and the molded foam, before they kind of invented this style of foam to do tuck and roll, they would pretty much sew, like, not quite tubes, but you'd kind of sew like tubes together and then stuff the tubes with cotton using really long rods. And some purists, they still want to do it that way, but in all honesty, doing it this way or that way, when the seat cover all goes together, you can't really tell the difference. Kind of like using lead versus like modern polyurethane body fillers. Once the paint goes on, you can't really tell the difference. So another fun fact about tuck and roll is the eras of tuck and roll. So when in like the 30s, the distance between each fold was fat, like 5-6 inches. And as time went on, they got narrow and narrower. So this 2 1/4 would be like a kind of like 50s, mid 50s. By the time you got to the 60s, they were like 1 inch wide, which personally I like well, it depends on the car, but I really like the really skinny 60 style ones. However, the skinnier you go, if you sew a little bit crooked or something, it shows it much more. Okay, this is done. That took quite a while, but there we've got all of our tuck and roll. So let's see how this fits on here. Okay, I'm going to sew the last ones. I think it's going to be okay. We have enough room. Like right now, our last roll is right here. So if we put one more on there, it'll be fine. So quickly do that. Just finished sewing that last line in. And now if we take our pattern and we'll lay our center line on our center line. If we follow these all the way along, our last pleat, our last fold is like right on the line where we wanted it to be on both sides here. So that worked out great. We can basically trace this, cut them out, and move on. Now we've got these guys done. They're all cut out, ready to go. Before we put the ivory away, we got a couple more pieces to lay out on there. We've got, this is like the back section here. Goes along there. So we're going to do that in ivory, as well as for this one here, we have the other back piece there. That's going to go in ivory. So we'll trace these out now before we put the ivory away, and then the rest is all going to be in ox blood. So we'll do that second. I have this kind of odd shaped cutoff from something I was making earlier, and it's going to work out pretty good for that piece doesn't quite fit there, but I bet this piece is going to fit. Yeah, that piece will fit great there. So that way we can kind of use up some of the scraps. Yeah, look at that. That works out Really nice. Okay, we'll trace those out of this scrap piece here. Roll out the ox blood now. Ooh. Pretty swanky. So just like before, we're just going to lay these out in a order that takes up minimal amount of material, probably something like that. And we'll just trace them, add all our lineup marks, our sew numbers, and cut them out. Okay, I've got both the cushion and backrest laid out. It laid out really nice. We've got very minimal wastage. A little bit right here and a little bit right here, which is pretty good. So we're going to cut this out now. And we got to glue this all to scrim. So remember our top plate, when we cut it in half, or not quite in half, but when we cut it to go with the pleats. So that's going to match up against this piece here, but we have to glue this to 1/2 inch scrim, even though we're not sewing anything in, and that is just to kind of get the depth of this the same as here, to the same amount of build. Otherwise, if you sew it together and cover your seat, this is going to sit 1/2 inch lower than this. All the other pieces though, those we can just glue to 1/4 inch scrim, because they don't really need any depth. They're all going to be on a different plane than the rest because they go around the sides. And the only reason they're going on 1/4 inch scrim is the scrim also kind of acts like primer, kind of like a high build primer. So if there's any imperfections in the foam or the seat frame or anything, that little bit of 1/4 inch scrim just kind of hides all that. So we'll cut these two out separate, and then these other chunks we'll probably glue them as they are onto the 1/4 inch scrim, and then cut each individual piece out. This is the 1/2 inch scrim. So just like before, we're just going to use a little bit of glue to glue this down. You don't need much. It's just kind of to hold it until you can sew it. Okay. With it glued down, now we can actually cut out our proper shape. I had a couple scraps of 1/4 inch scrim, and I can use most of those scraps for these little pieces. There's only 2 big pieces here that need to come out of the fresh roll. So if you're doing a lot of upholstery, always save your cutoffs and stuff, because you can usually use them again. So just like before, we're just going to glue these pieces down. what do we got here? This here is the backrest. We've got our pleated part, and then we've got this is the part that we cut on the original pattern. So it's going to go together like that. But before we do that, we're going to put some piping in here, kind of like that. It just gives it a nice, clean, crisp, happy looking piece. So first things first, we're going to sew the piping to here, and then we'll flip them together, sew the whole works together, and then we'll have a completed top plate. We're going to leave a little bit of a tail hanging over here. I'll show you why we do that in a second. And yeah, let's sew some piping on. And now we're simply going to run it through again with our tuck and roll panel. Okay, there we go. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so that was number 1. Now we're going to go to number 2, which is this back piece back here. So we've got our lineup marks here, and I've just transferred them onto the back side so that as we're sewing this through, you can still make sure that your lineup marks are happy. That was number 1, that was number 2. So now we can go through here and find there's a number 3 and a number 3. They go together like that. So basically we got 3, 4, 5, and 6. We can sew all these together now. Then we'll make our piping. Actually, no, before that we'll sew the other one up, and then we can measure the piping for both of them and make all the piping at once. The cool thing about having the old pattern is when you're sewing the new one together, if anything doesn't make sense, you can always go back and look at the old one and see how it went. This piece, I was a little bit unsure. I had my lineup mark there, but I was not quite sure where it started and ended. So I just went and looked on the old one, and you can see where it starts and where it ends, and then transfer those marks on there so that you got an idea of where to go. Well, there's our top plate all sewn up, and then here's our band all sewn up. So this will get sewn all the way around down to here on both sides. But first we got to make some piping for in here. Before we make the piping though, we'll put this to the side. That was our backrest. So here's our cushion. We're going to sew our cushion all together just like that. And then we can measure how much piping we're going to need for this one. And we can make all the piping in one go. So this is basically exactly the same as that. I don't know if you noticed in the time lapse there, but as I was sewing these on, the little plastic clips that hold everything on, I was taking them off the old panels and sewing them on the new panels as I was at that step. And what I mean by step is when I was sewing panel number 5, I would cut them off panel 5 and sew them on. And I do that just so that they stay fresh in your mind. Before I've come across if I've cut these off and just had them laying to the side, then it's time to sew it back on and you're like, oh, does it go this way? Does it go this way? I don't know. So that way you can take it off the old one and sew it on the new one in the exact same position. That way it'll come around and clip to the backside. Cool, wasn't that exciting? All right, this piece is all done. So now we can measure. Basically, we need a measurement from like this point here all the way around back to this point here. That's how much piping we'll need for this one. And then we'll need that much piping for that one as well. So we're going to start measuring. Another way we can do it is instead of measuring that, we can just measure this because it's a little bit easier. So here we got 24. And then I actually, I got a center line right there. So we can go to there and just double it. So that's 44. So if we make this 88, and then we'll add a couple inches just for extra. So let's make it like 95 inches for that one. Let me write it down so I don't forget. 95 inches for the cushion. So we'll put that, we'll just get it right out of the way. So the backrest, we'll do the same thing. Find a center mark here. I'm just gonna take these two seams, butt them together. Gotta pull that tight. And then make a mark. And now I know where the middle is gonna be. Right there, okay. So there's 5 inches, 15 inches, 27 inches. To our center mark here is 46. So 46 and 46 is 92. Might as well make that 100. So plus the 95, we need 195 inches of ivory piping. The very fancy way to do it would be to make like a 100-inch nonstop piece and a 95-inch nonstop piece. But that can really mess with your roll. You don't want to go like 100 inches all the way up the roll and then have like a weird cutout in the piece. So what I'm going to do first, the other alternative is to just make them the width of the row or the width of the roll, sew them, but then you'll have a seam, which, I mean, that's not a terrible thing. I have a couple seams in the upholstery of my truck. And I mean, honestly, once it's all together, you don't even really notice them. But let's see where we're at here. Because we do have a really long tail right here. We might be able to get 100 inches out of this without making it super weird. Okay, so I know my table is 96 inches. So, yeah, we'll probably cut a strip off here. We already got a little weird tail going on here. So I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, it's for Shane's car, right? Only the best for Shane. Okay, we'll take our angle iron again. This piece of angle iron, when I moved into this shop, it was already up here, so it's worked out good. Okay, what do we got here? We want 96 inches and 100 inches. We might as well make them both 100. So we need a little bit more. Can I roll this? Oh yeah. Don't fall off. Actually, I'm going to slide this down. It's going to fall off the end of the table. Okay, so that's probably about 100 inches there. Give or take. All right, there's one. Let's make our second strip here. Two. Move down a little bit. Do that again. Okay. Once I trace this out, we can cut them out and sew the piping core in there, just like we did with the ox blood. All right, snip, snip time. Now we're just going to take this piping, we're going to sew it on here, and then we can sew this piece on, and we'll have a completed cushion. We've got both bands sewn to the top plates here. So now we can unfold this and see what it looks like. Check that out. That's pretty cool, I think. Hopefully Shane likes it. Poke this little corner out. Yeah. There we go. There is a completed, this one, BR, that's the backrest. And then this guy here would be the cushion. So we can test fit these now. And remember, I was saying earlier that we might have to add foam because those old covers, they were glued in there to give it the contour and stuff. So this might bridge over top and be okay. It might not. The only way to know for sure is to install it and see how it looks. And if it looks nice, then we're good. If it looks baggy or saggy or loose, then we'll pull it off and we'll add some foam to those just to build it up. The foam is, at that point, it's literally acting like primer, like high build primer. Just giving it some build to fill all the weird little imperfections and stuff. So, let's do that. I might have got a little ahead of myself putting the cover on. We've got these old tabs sitting up. And that was, there's holes here in the original cover that we have not put in the new one, and we're not going to. These are to tie down a baby seat. So Shane does have kids, but his kids are about 20 years beyond baby seats. So we don't need those anymore. So I think we'll take this downstairs into the shop and we'll just zing these off just so that they're not poking through anymore. We don't need them. So we'll do that first. The backrest also has this little bracket right here that was for an armrest that we're not using anymore. So we'll take this downstairs and chop that guy off as well. I might have got a little I've just test fit the cover now. I thought I was filming while I test fit this to show you guys the process, but I didn't push the record button. So here we are with a test fit. Like I thought, we're a little bit baggy, very baggy. So we're gonna pull this cover back off now, and we'll deck the entire cushion with some foam to build it up, get all these corners straightened out. This is pretty normal. I was like 90% sure this was gonna happen, but I like to test fit anyways before I do it, just in case it doesn't, and then it saves a whole bunch of material. So we'll pull this off and build it up. This is what I use for glue, if you were wondering. Weldwood contact adhesive for Lando tops and trim. You can get it in, this is 5-gallon pails, which I think is the biggest they make. You can get it in like a little 1 liter or a quart jug as well. And I just spray it through a cheap paint gun. I don't know why, this defies most logic, but I've never ever cleaned this out. I leave the glue in it all the time. I'll spray, just hang it right back up on the shelf here, and it'll sit for sometimes 2-3 months. I'll never touch it, grab it, and it just keeps spraying again. So unlike automotive paint, you don't actually have to like clean this out after every use. Maybe like once a year is probably a good idea to clean it out, but I never have, and it works fine. I spilt a little bit of glue here. Let's clean that up, and then glue this guy down. So this is just some 1-inch foam. It's a soft density because we're not looking to make this any firmer. We're just trying to bulk it up. So I'm going to lay this on top here to see about how much I need. We'll hook our little glue gun up here and probably just flip this like that. We'll give this a good spray. Like so. Try to get nice even coverage. I'm going in like little circle motions with it. Now, we'll spray this guy. Go around the edge here. I don't know if I'll spray these low points here, because we don't want it to get stuck down there. We want to level it off here. So maybe I'll go down the middle a little bit. Up on the bolsters here. And across the back. Hit this one more time. Okay, and now we'll just flip this back over. Like so. Okay, now we're gonna grab our super high-tech Hamilton Beach turkey carver. It was Thanksgiving yesterday. Canadian Thanksgiving. We have Thanksgiving earlier than Americans. Why? I don't know. Never understood that. So, get rid of that guy. And we'll probably, I don't know, go 3 inches or so across here. Oh, don't want to cut a cord. Okay, let's get this piece out of here. Put it aside because we'll probably use it for the backrest. Okay, now we can spin this around. We'll grab our glue again and glue the sides here and the front. Get nice even coverage on there. And then we'll probably let this tack up for a moment just so that it gets a little sticky. If it's a little too wet when you fold it, it doesn't want to stick. Okay, let's take our corner and pull on. Oh yeah, we're not quite ready yet. See how it's coming loose again? And yeah, basically we're just going to fold this up kind of all the way around like that. If this was thicker density, we wouldn't want this edge right here. We would want to bring it all the way to the end, but because this is nice soft foam and we have scrim on there, this will blend right in. You'll never even see it. So let's take our turkey carver again, and we'll just trim this excess off here. There's one side. And the other side. This back little tail here, it's probably fine. We can probably just leave that the way it is. Okay, let's test fit this again. And I'll make sure to record it this time. Ooh, we should glue, there's a little slit right here where the old wires are starting to fold through. So we'll just glue that together. If this was super wore out, like it was cut through in a lot of spots, we could deck the whole bottom of this with some felt or some carpet or something to kind of hold it all together. But because it was a minivan seat from the middle, it's got very minimal. It hasn't been a lot of fat people sitting on it. Okay, let's get our piece up here again. We'll test fit this. See, that took just about all the shape, the contour out of it. Contoured seats are really trendy right now, and personally I think they look really weird. Like when you see those super sculpted, molded seats. I've never actually sat on one. I don't know if they're comfortable or not, but it looks weird to me. But I like traditional stuff. Okay, that sits nice in there like that. So I forgot to record the first test fit here. But you guys are in luck because the record button is on now. So when you test fit this stuff, or when you go to put your covers on, you want to fold them inside out again. You don't just pull it on all willy-nilly like it's a sock or something. You kind of got to roll them on. Otherwise, you get wrinkles, and it's hard to get the wrinkles out. Foam is not, it doesn't like to slide. It's not slippery. So we'll get that sitting about where it needs to sit. Grab the whole works. Flip it upside down. I'll have to reposition this a little bit again. And then you kind of always start at the back. You clip the back in first, flip it over, and then roll the front edge over. So let's do that. Clip that guy in. On older seats that don't have these clips, you would use hog rings there. Okay, make sure we're centered on here. Flip that over. Make sure it's still all happy. And now we'll just roll this edge over. Well, it's already looking a lot better than it did on the last test fit. Okay, make sure our foam is kind of in the same spot. You can tell where it went because of the old marks in there. Okay, let's test fit this. Okay, we're just going to clip these back together. It is way tighter than it was when I test fit it the first time, which is good. That's what we want. That gives it a nice finish. Okay. Oh, we're on the wrong side here. Okay, let's flip this around. Oh yeah, that looks way better. I'm happy with that. It gives it such a nice radius that way as well. Just kind of work it around to level it out a bit here. Yeah, that should be fine, I think. These little tails here, we can, from the factory, usually they were just like tucked underneath and hog ringed in, which we could do, or you could trim them off. So remember when I left these ones long? The reason being is if you just cut them off at the end there, they have the tendency, this edge will eventually start to wear through there and break that, which we don't want. Okay, I think we can call this done. We'll move on to the backrest now. That worked out pretty good. I'm happy with it. So now I'm just taking a little bit of some thinner, some wax and grease remover actually, and we're just wiping off all our old lineup marks and numbers and stuff. It wipes off really easy. There was a little bit of glue right there. It came right off. So I think the backrest is pretty much done. But if we flip it over on the back side here, we still have this. So remember this guy here, it sits on there, but we don't want to put this back on like this. It's all fuzzy and gray and doesn't match anything. So we'll have to change that. Let's do that right now. We're probably not even gonna peel this off. We'll use this as like the primer, basically like the scrim, and I think we're just gonna wrap probably some red, some of the ox blood. We'll just wrap it around and staple it on the back side. So this is the tedious stuff that takes so long with upholstery work, and why the stuff that really starts to add up. Kind of like if you chop a car, just cutting the roof, lowering it, welding the roof back on, that's the easy part. The time-consuming part is getting all the windows to function again, cutting your vent windows down, cutting all the stainless down. That's the time-consuming part. With upholstery, it's all the little this kind of stuff that's the extreme time-consuming stuff. Not that that's going to take a long time. That'll take a couple minutes to cover, but it all adds up. So, okay, let's set this aside and do that. So we're going to lay this out probably 2.5 inches or so around it. And that'll give us enough room to kind of like wrap it. So that should be probably about there. See how that looks. Oh yeah, that's lots. Okay, so we'll cut that out. And oh, where's the scissors? I think the scissors are downstairs. I'll use these little scissors. These are Shannon's scissors, and they work okay, except for my fat thumb gets stuck in them. Okay, snip, snip, snip. All right. Get rid of this stuff. Staple that on. So to staple this on, we're just going to use this little stapler here with some 1/4-inch staples. Hopefully they're not going to poke through onto the backside. We'll center it up on here. Tag the centers. Oh yeah, we're okay. They don't poke through. Yeah, basically do that all the way around. Now we're just going to use a nice sharp razor blade and trim the excess off. And there we have it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we can go ahead and attach this to the back side of the backrest now. I think we're ready to put these guys back on. We got to punch some holes. So I'm just going to use this little hole finder, which was a broken screwdriver that I just like filed down to a point. And we can see where our bolts got to be. So we're just going to poke the holes. Might have to take a razor blade now that we know where they are and just cut a little X into it, which we can do right now. It just has to be enough that the bolt will go through. Probably doesn't even need to be an X, really. Just a little slice. Okay. So Shane did not want to put these plastic pieces back on, but that's pretty ugly. Now, these are pretty ugly too, but we can fix that up. I've got some plastic paint that's a very similar color to this ivory. So I think we'll give these a little wipe down with some wax and grease remover and then hit them with some paint. And that should at least make them look, I mean, they're not going to look like 1930, but they're not going to like stand out and scream like 1996 Caravan either. So I think it'll be okay. So this is what we're going to paint this with. This is SEM Super White. And while they call it Super White, it's actually very close to like a Wimbledon white or an ivory. This is like a plastic and vinyl paint, although you can paint metal with it. For everyone that's seen my interior of my 47, all my dash plastics and the steering wheel and stuff is all painted with this. It's a really good match to that ivory. So basically it just sprays exactly like regular old spray paint. Oh, except for this can does not spray. Technical difficulties. Please stand by. So I just bolted or screwed on the two top pieces here, and it's definitely not a close match. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's because I have the same ivory in my 47, but maybe it's because my dash plastics are not right next to the seat, and when it's that far away, it's not noticeable. But this being right beside each other, it's definitely noticeable. The bottom plastics, I also had a little bit of a paint reaction on those. So we gotta wait for them to dry, maybe try them again tomorrow. But I think I want to talk to Shane about this first, because he didn't want them at all, and I don't think this looks any better. So we're gonna have to come up with like a plan C on what to do there. Maybe we could wrap it in vinyl, but that's a lot of labor. So we'll talk to him and see what he says. In the meantime, though, I mean, our seat is basically done, other than these little trim pieces on the side. So we can probably put it back in the car and see what it looks like. I mean, that's at least have some sort of a win. So maybe Shane was onto something when he said not to put the plastics back on, because when the seat's in the car, you barely even see it, especially with the seat belt. Also, by the way, I didn't put these seat belts in, but if you're putting seat belts in your car, the short end always goes to the outside so that the long end doesn't fall out the door like that. But that's a minor detail. I don't think Shane cares. So there's a seat in there. That looks pretty good. I think it looks great. Jim thinks it looks great. He's over there working on Gordy's Arden. Our tuck and rolls all line up with each other from the backrest down to the cushion. That's always important. So I think Shane should be pretty stoked with this. Okay, there you have it, folks. That is how to take a minivan seat and make it into a cool hot rod seat. So Shane should be pretty stoked with this. Next up on this car, Jim has made door panels and kick panels. So next will be to upholster those. They'll be the same basic concept as this. I don't know if we need to do a video on that. Between sewing this and stapling that back cover, I mean, that's basically all the door panels are going to be as well. So if you're still watching, thank you very much. I realize this is a really long video. I think this is the longest video I've ever made, and that's because there's a lot of steps into this. So If you enjoyed this video and you learned something that you're going to apply to your car and you want to say thank you, go check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com, and get yourself an LG Speed Custom shirt, stickers, stuff like that. Thanks to everybody who has been buying shirts. It's so cool when, I put a video up and then the next morning I've got all these orders on the website for t-shirts. That's so cool. Thank you very much. Anyways, make sure to check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com, as well as thanks to the Wrought Iron Haulers. All the music in this video is done by the Wrought Iron Haulers, local Victoria band. They're not around anymore, but they still have a Bandcamp. Go check them out on Bandcamp. And yeah, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.